call this meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda for this morning will be to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those minutes, sorry.
Yes.
Is there any discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve. This is Andy.
Okay. Motion from Andy to
Second.
approve. There's second. Second from Alder Maldonado. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion carries. Minutes are approved, Mr. Groupie. Next on the agenda, is there any public appearances for non-agenda items?
Good morning, Joe.
Oh,
Like maybe at the door.
I don't see. Oh, you mean Joe showing up in chambers? Okay, all right. Good morning, Joe. All we have done is approve the minutes. So a quick review of the agenda. We've got a lot of items on the agenda today, a lot of information to share, some good positive things that have gotten done since the last meeting, and some positive things that will get done as we begin to move forward. So I'm not going to review these items detail by detail. I think it's best we just jump into the agenda, and we will then take it forward, and we will be off this call by 9 o'clock. You have my promise there. So the first thing is a resolution. I'm going to turn it over to Phil, and Phil is screen sharing.
Yeah, we've got that as the second agenda item.
Oh,
if that's all right.
That's fine. I must have the old agenda. I must have the old draft. That's fine. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead.
you've got the draft. I moved a couple things from that draft. Sorry, Mark.
That's
yeah,
fine. All I have was the draft. So okay.
We'll be,
so go ahead, Phil, and talk about the bicycle related events.
Yep, this will be relatively quick. We got a few events coming up this fall. Pick Me Up at the Border is Bike Fitchburg's big fundraiser for the year. That'll be in late September. So we still got a little bit of time before that, but certainly I would imagine Bike Fitchburg's starting to advertise. This one I should have mentioned at our June meeting and neglected to. Fair Share CSA Coalition does their annual fundraiser, Bike the Barns, where they have people bike around different local farms in the county, and it's a fundraiser to help provide CSA shares for folks who need that financial assistance. This year they adapted it to be more of an on your own distance thing that they're calling Roots to Roots. Fun with spelling there. So that's something that you can still sign up for, and I believe is running through September. So if you haven't yet joined that and you're interested, they've got a number of different routes that you can join. You can sign up at different levels. You get a t-shirt, I think, and any funds raised there will go to help provide those CSA shares for local families. And then Love to Ride. So we joined them last year for Cycle September. We joined them this spring for Bike Month competition. They're doing Cycle September again this fall. So Love to Ride Madison chapter will be kind of spearheading the local effort, and I'll probably be signing up a City of Fitchburg team again. So look for information on that. I know we just had the Festival of Speed. We just had the Bike Across Wisconsin was the end of July into August. I don't know if anybody has any quick updates on how those went.
I couldn't do either one. I think Andy and Steve rode the Festival of Speed ride. Correct, guys?
Yep, I did the 25. It's a nice route. It's a nice morning for it. Seemed to have pretty good attendance. And then I did attend some of the races later in the day, not racing myself, but just to watch.
You know, it's really interesting, I think, and I shared this with the Festival of Speed folks afterwards. I had a meeting with them about the Boys and Girls Club ride. I still don't think, most of our city don't know what's going on with those races over there. And I heard a few people that went over said the bands was excellent, and it was a very nicely organized event. So I don't know what else we can do next year to get that message out, but it seems like it's only getting to a small minority of our city. So that's just an editorial comment. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Duly
Phil,
noted,
anything
something worth
else?
considering.
Yeah,
No,
anything
that's
else
it
about
for
cycling?
events.
Well, I have one I got to add into this.
Sure.
There is going to be on Wednesday, August 11th, there's going to be a Fitchburg National Community Night Out picnic event up by the new hub. And Tony Hartman from Bike Fitchburg is doing a lot of work on this. I know he's talking to Wade Thompson as well. And Lisa Heitman from the police department. They're going to try and have a bike rodeo up there. So that'll be a good thing towards our silver journey, or our gold journey, sorry. And there's a meeting on it this Thursday. So I think as we know more, we can share back with this group. But it is, it's Wednesday night, August 11th.
Thanks, Mark. I know that, yeah, you sent that over as an email, I think, after I had put this slide together. So I should have gotten that in there, but thanks for adding it in.
Yeah, no problem. And they're going to be looking for volunteers. So as I'm going to go to Tony and Lisa's meeting, I'll send volunteer requests back to this group if you're free that night. So anything else on this one, Phil?
No, I believe that's it here.
Okay. So since I'm working from a draft agenda, is the next item the resolution on
The
South
next item
Sain?
is the resolution, yeah. So we need a motion and a second here, and I'll ask Andrew to add a little bit of context here for everybody.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make
No
a motion. to approve.
And
Same.
Andy made a motion. Okay, is there a second? I'll second it. Okay, is there further discussion on the motion?
All right. So we've got, I can do a quick overview here, and then Andrew, I think Andrew McFadden's on the call if you want to add just a little bit more. So basically this is just looking at the Sain Road construction, South Sain reconstruction from Aurora to Clayton. There is an approval here for just kind of a typical section, sort of the cross section of what the construction is going to look like. And so we've got this going to a couple committees, including Bike Committee. Andrew, if you've got more on that.
Sure, yeah, and you might notice that the northern limits changed a little bit. The original project was scoped to go up through McCoy and kind of address that trail crossing, the Cap City Trail. Unfortunately, just due to budget kind of increases that weren't accounted for in previous estimates, we're now breaking this project up at West Clayton. So there was a CIP amendment to do so that passed, and so now basically this is talking about the southern portion, so from Aurora up to West Clayton, and then we'll be seeking grant funding for that northern portion. But for this portion, we're talking about basically 10-foot travel lanes, buffered bike lanes. The shared use path on the west side would remain, sidewalk on the east side, and then 2-foot curb and gutter. So that's a 1-foot gutter pan with a 1-foot curb head. That's kind of the cross section we're proposing. There will be some kind of discrepancies, just potentially further south of, or kind of in between East Sherrill and Lacey. That's kind of a more rural section. Once you get south of some of the businesses there, so that we might drop curb and gutter there, but we'd be retaining the 10-foot travel lanes and the bike lanes throughout this entire and the buffer bike lanes throughout this entire section. So. And there's also potentially parking kind of on that Central Park up to Argus block, 5 to 10 spaces. We're still kind of leaving that on the table. We want to bring back kind of some concepts to the public just to talk about some of the nuances we talked about in a small group meeting. We met, I think, 6 times over the last couple of months, and I've learned a lot about the corridor, and so I think we have a lot of information there to share with the public. So, but this is kind of the first step, just getting buy-off on the cross section, and then we would have a public meeting and then come back to you guys and the other committees for the plat, which would kind of lay down right of way and kind of the nitty gritty of the corridor. So that's where we're at now. Any questions?
Yeah, Andrew, I've got one here, or two actually. One. So will the crossing at the Cap City Trail and Sain get talked about at a later date? You said it's not in the scope of the project now, but you're gonna look for grant money. Is it going to get talked about how we can maybe put some lights there or something? Or
Yeah, definitely. So I should mention I didn't want to take up too much of the time, but it's a great point. So on August 15th, we are applying for basically highway safety improvement funding for that project. What I'm going to direct Sam and the consultants to do would be to use the kind of reoriented T. So basically, Cyene would continue through, and then McCoy would T into it. That would, we've asked kind of WISDOT if they have a preference. We haven't heard back yet, but just overwhelmingly, the preference from folks in kind of our small group meetings, folks I've talked to, would be to, do kind of that reorientation and signalize that intersection so that you would have a controlled crossing like you would up at the Cap State Trail at McCoy with our new signal going in next year. So
Okay.
that's going to be what we apply for. It's, we'll certainly have, that's a full new project. And so we'll have lots of additional public outreach kind of separately for that. But at least in our application, that's what we're going for. And, we can always change it, but just to kind of get that submitted in, we went with what we've heard so far.
Okay.
Andrew,
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just curious about that reoriented T, Andrew. If Cyene is cutting straight through here, does that require any property acquisition from Gervasi here?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it could potentially. So the right of way is such that that road used to continue straight through, and we reoriented. I forgot when. And so by and large, we could use kind of the old right of way, but it's not without a bit of kind of rework, and so there would certainly be some temporary easements and then potentially some permanent, depending on how much we need and some of the grading. So it's possible, but by and large, we can kind of use the old right of way that goes northbound through there.
Okay.
So my second question to you, Andrew, is we had discussion on several occasions about the yellow part there along McCoy Road from the Gulf, or as it comes into to the Cap City Trail, that multi-use path. Yeah, I don't know, a little bit further up, but right, go north of south of it, right
here.
That's terrible. That multi-use path is just falling apart. And is that going to get looked at all before we have somebody have an accident?
Sure. So similar. So basically, we're cutting it off at West Clayton just for simplicity.
Got it. Okay.
So unfortunately, that won't be looked at as part of this project.
Okay.
But we have the design consultant on board. They were originally scoped to do all of this, so there is certainly some potential to I guess look at some of that stuff, but it probably won't be constructed until this project goes. Right now, we're guessing it'll be 2023, 2024.
Again, just please don't lose that, because we will. Speaking from one who just had a bike wreck this summer, we will have an accident down there. It's really getting rough as you come down. If you're going downhill, uphill it's a little easier, but going downhill, it gets really rough. Then you got to go across that wooden bridge.
Right.
And so just be aware, and I think put you guys on notice that you need to plan for it. So thank you.
I have a quick question based on what a community member told me. When we're in general approving or improving roads and putting paved shoulders on sections of roads, are the people who live on that section of road, are they responsible for paying an additional fee for the fact that their road just got a paved shoulder? I mean, I understand that if it's a sidewalk in front of their house, they certainly get assessed a certain fee, but if it's on the road itself and we're paving a shoulder, are the homeowners who live in that section responsible for an additional fee to help cover that road cost?
Right. So as part of this project, we're not currently including assessment. I'll say, and we don't normally, as far as I know. And even with sidewalks, sometimes we waive that as well. So, and that's the case here. We have two homeowners here that we would potentially be putting in sidewalk that we waiving that fee potentially. So I would say when we were looking at parking, and if parking's still a possibility on that block between Central and Argus, we would probably be looking at assessment there, just because that is, that use is really specifically for the adjacent residents, whereas a paved shoulder or a bike lane is not specifically benefiting a residence versus, that's more of a longitudinal facility.
Okay, well, when we get to, I was having a conversation with a gentleman on Irish Lane down towards because he had fallen in front of his house. And I was on my bike and I stopped and helped him get up. And I made a comment about how, boy, it would have been really nice if we had have a paved shoulder in that section. And he was extremely agitated about the fact that he thought he would have to pay for that personally, the section that went in front of his house. So I said, well, I didn't really think that that was how it worked for a road. And I told him I would ask. And then there's also somebody who lives on the corner of Sain and Irish Lane who is under the same impression.
Interesting. You know, I think it might have been included in our basically right of way, you know, assessing procedures, but from my knowledge, we haven't ever used that.
Okay, we might want to make that clear because there are people who are adamantly afraid of improvements, thinking that they are personally going to have to pay for a safer intersection or a safer road.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's a great point.
I say historically, going back from when I was chairing public works, we would not assess for that. And then even to the sidewalk point, as Andrew mentioned, we typically don't assess for the sidewalks if they were in because we have our bike and ped plan. So historically, if it was an improvement that was identified in the bike and ped plan, that since that was viewed to be a citywide benefit, that would not be something assessed to the property owner.
Okay, well, that's something I think we're gonna need to make clear, because I've run into 2 people in the last 3 weeks who think that they would have to pay. And I told them I would ask and I would get back to them.
Yeah, so Andrew, can you somehow give them an update, the people along that line, or post it somewhere they can see it?
Sure. Yep. And my sense is that that's south of those project limits, but definitely we can make that clear both for this project and for those.
Well, there's a lot
areas.
of people in my neighborhood who are quite concerned about the Sain and Irish Lane intersection. Because it's a visibility issue, and people who are coming down Irish Lane assume that there's a stop sign, is a 4-way stop, and it's not. So there's a lot of near accidents on that intersection. But they're afraid that if there's any improvements at all, that they're gonna be responsible, financially responsible for it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely do some outreach there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is that correct, guys?
That's correct.
So, yeah. So is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay, then let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion is approved. Phil and Andrew, continue.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody. All right, so takes us up to the next item here, projects impacting the bike network. It's a little bit shorter than it has been the last couple months. So we'll breeze through this a little bit faster. We've got Fish Hatchery Road construction continues. Cap City Trail Bridge over Fish Hatchery, if you hadn't noticed, hadn't heard, that is now open to cyclists and pedestrians again. And that's important because my best understanding, correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrew, but I believe that the signalized crossings for bikes and pedestrians at Fish Hatch and McKee are currently not open. So we're rerouting everybody over that bridge. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the west side, so crossing McKee, that's definitely not. We're closing that down just from that southbound right turn. We thought that was too much of a conflict, so we bagged those pedestrian heads. There's a bus stop south of the intersection that folks are stopping at, and we do have those kind of black tarps that are out there for a pedestrian accessible route. We will be paving that area soon, so that will kind of be moving as we do that. But.
Okay, great. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in a little bit, so I did that ride over the weekend and added a couple miles to my trip when I realized the route I'd planned on I didn't do my research. The bridge over Nine Springs Creek is going to be poured soon. So if you've been driving up along Fish Hatchery, get close to Nine Springs Golf Course, you've probably seen that new separated bridge that's being constructed along there to go over the creek.
And
So I'll be excited
did
to get that in place.
poured last week, so we're
All right, I am
no. At the time when
behind
I
the
gave you
times on
that
that.
info, that was the latest, so we're good now.
And then the signals, the traffic signals at Greenway, is that those are operational now at Greenway Cross?
Yep. So I believe there's no more, asking for password. I know that was kind of some egg on our face. So there's some basically mix up between Madison, Tapco, and us to get that. So those buttons are there. Now we're just waiting on some placards, but we'll get that all buttoned up here in the next couple weeks.
Okay, yeah, it'll be nice to have all those signals operational. Yeah. So yeah, fish hatchery continues to pace. This one is projected to be done by October, this whole reconstruction.
Yep, originally November. I think we're a little ahead of schedule, so hopefully end of October.
Awesome.
So Phil, before we go to the next one, Steve had registered to speak to support on 5B.
Oh,
so as you move,
my apologies. Thanks, Mark.
No, that's okay. We're trying to stay this to the proper rules of order.
Yep.
So as you go, yeah, we need to go back to that. Yeah.
Mark,
It's the next item. Go ahead, Andy.
But Tony Hartman's been trying to get into the meeting too. So maybe that's a message for fact that he's still in the waiting room.
Scott, are you still there? I'll send Scott a note. Thank you, Andy. So Phil, I think we go ahead and let Steve speak to the 5B before we move into the discussion on it, Phil and Andy.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so this may be moot because you already approved, moved to recommend approval of 5B. But I wanted to weigh in that Bike Fitchburg does support this cross section. I would note that the diagrams that are showing 2-foot wide gutter pans and 6-inch curb heads on the outside of the road, the resolution correctly states 1-foot gutter pans and 1-foot curb heads. And I'll just preface or postscript this comment and preface my others that I'm going to speak is even notwithstanding our name, Bike Fitchburg prides itself on advocating for all road users. So when I'm making comments, it's because I think it's going to work. And Bike Fitchburg has approved this position. It will work for transit users, people who walk, people who drive, people who use mobility devices, and people who make deliveries. So we did support the cross section, and we did participate in the small group meetings. And I thank Andrew for the opportunity to participate, and I thank you all for voting for approval. And I'll talk to you next under D.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you,
sorry
Steve.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for giving us a heads up on which items you registered to speak on, Steve. I wasn't aware that I need to look into where I find out who has registered to speak for what items on these Zoom calls.
No, we got it. We're okay. So we caught it. And thank you, Steve. And I responded. So the next item, so once you guys keep moving, the next item Steve wishes to speak on is 5D.
Okay, thanks. All right, so moving down from fish hatchery reconstruction, we've got the South Sign Road rework. And we just spoke about this all, so don't really need much of an update here. I know there was an additional South Sign project where we had from Aurora South that was closed off for a bit. Is that correct, Andrew? Is there? I guess that's not doesn't fit into the category of impacting the bike network specifically, but
I mean, to the extent that we have basically that close to local traffic only right now, so south of Aurora, and so yeah, basically there's a water main project going in right now, and then I think in September that's going to transition over to a road reconstruction project, and that's going from there south through Irish. We are coordinating with Ironman for kind of how they're going to rework the course, knowing that they typically use that. So
that definitely impacts.
Yep.
The bike community, let me tell you.
Oh, okay. Well, my oversight to not have it on here, but thanks for the update, Andrew. Mm-hmm. We have another further update on the Nine Springs Interceptor project here. from sewage district. So initially this was scheduled to be completed in December of 2021. I don't have an updated graphic from them. So this is the original graphic from last year. You can see that original date here. Got an email a week or two ago from MMSD that they're actually expecting this completion October 1st. So hopefully these routes and the roundabout will all be opened up to cyclists by then. I'll keep the committee updated if that's going to change at all. But that is the expectation now, that by October we're going to have our whole roundabout back and all the trails leading to and from it. So that'll be nice and exciting. And then some continued information on the Lacey Road reconstruction project. So we're still in the planning stage here. Last I spoke with Andrew, the updated design, they're sending us out for 3D modeling. Hopefully before our meeting on October, I don't remember the exact date, I think the 6th, that modeling will be completed. But this one, I don't believe there are any other updates since we spoke in June, when the final design had been approved with the buffered bike lanes and the 10-foot multi-use path going along the north side.
Phil, I think Steve had wanted to speak on this one. Is that correct, Steve?
If we're on 5 Charlie, no.
No, we're on 5. Isn't this 5D?
This is C.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my fault.
I would, since you called on me, I would say that there was a missed opportunity. Just like Irish Lane, that was repaved, resurfaced without shoulders. And now we have South Saline Road that speaking for Bike Fitchburg, we were blindsided that there was going to be a road reconstruction, and this would have been an opportunity to connect the Greenfield neighborhood into the bike network by paving the shoulders. And again, to remind everyone, paving shoulders is not a benefit for bicyclists. It provides a breakdown lane, and most importantly, it makes the road last longer by preventing edge crumbling. So that we need, I think, as a process to look at how the bike committee and Bike Fitchburg can find out that a road is going to be resurfaced.
Well, the South Saline there, I know we had spoken about this with Bike Committee in the past about I don't remember the specific details, but about difficulty, I think, either acquiring all that land or the cost of adding the shoulder. Sorry, Angie, go ahead.
No, I will admit to being blindsided, and I live in the Greenfield neighborhood. I was not aware that that was going to be closed. For some reason, I thought that wasn't a project that was happening right now. And that's where I got into conversation with the neighbor who lives on that corner in that brown house, who was under the assessment that any improvements, or under the impression that any improvements would be assessed to their property.
Well, I think let's go back to what we asked to do when I became chair of this group. And that is, as Andrew, I know you're new to the party and Phil's relatively new. As you guys map out what's going to be done in the upcoming year, I think it's good to sit down with our bike committee and walk through all these, include members of Bike Fitchburg that need to attend as well, so we can catch these up front and not get surprised like Angie's saying. I mean, that's the way we work together in our community. And I would like to officially request that again. We asked this of Bill Balke 2 years ago. And I would ask again that whatever your timing is when you begin to put these projects into your project list, so to speak, I'd like you to come to us along at the same time so we can have some input and I guess dialogue's the first thing. But I would please ask that of both Phil and Andrew, that we continue to do that in the future.
Thanks, Mark. And just so you know, that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. That's mainly Tom and Bill making those decisions. But I'll note that, with the paved shoulders in this particular project, we're looking at something like double the cost of the resurfacing project. So it really might be more of a decision of, is this a resurfacing project or is this a CIP project? And then if it's a CIP, like for example, Irish coming up, then, we can budget in those additional facilities, and get that approved and have that versus, adding it on to a resurfacing project that we might not typically have that funding for. So I think that might be the distinction, and kind of working through which roads are in rough shape and which should be CIP versus resurfacing. So yeah, that's a great point.
I think this does raise a question, Andrew. This is a couple different things that have popped up along sign where Angie's talking about people not being familiar, not being aware of what was going on. How are projects like this generally noticed to the communities? I think that's something I'm not actually aware of.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, certainly on the assessment side, like for the greenfield, so that would certainly be noticed whenever there's assessment involved, and then CIP projects as well from an assessment perspective. A year or two whenever it's on the CIP ahead of time. So there's that, but then yeah, I can definitely see how it goes from CIP to actually occurring. That sort of transition makes it that's definitely very abrupt, and so I can see that. And then as well, there's a kind of two separate projects, water main versus resurfacing, that were jointly done in this case, and so I could definitely see that somebody thought it was just water main versus resurfacing. So I'm not sure exactly on some of the other notices. I can follow up with Tom on what they did for this project.
Yeah, I
So,
think that would be good enough.
yeah, so one of the people, the woman who lives in the brown house on that intersection of Cyan and Irish, she is very aware of most of the meetings and things that go on in the city of Fitchburg. She pays attention to everything clearly. She reads notices, she goes or listens to city council meetings. And she was one of the ones who was like, well, yeah, we all get assessed for any road improvement. And I was not arguing with her, but I was like, I don't think you get assessed for a road. A sidewalk, I thought, yeah, it's on your property kind of thing, yes. But even then I wasn't sure, and that's why I told her I'd ask. But she's not somebody who's not reading notices. She's looking up notices. She's paying attention to what's going on. She's talked to me about the Sain Road, Old Indian Trail stuff that we've been getting regarding the drainage issues that have been there for 27 years that I know. So she's somebody who's aware, but there clearly is a disconnect there for people who, and certainly the gentleman who had fallen on the road thought that he'd be responsible for paying for a paved shoulder that he could then walk on. So.
Okay, Phil and Andrew, you guys want to keep moving through through the projects here? And again, I think, Steve, is this the one you wanted to speak to?
Nope, it's the next one, Mark.
I'm sorry. Again, please send me the agenda, Phil. I'm working from an old one.
Yep, that was sent out to all committee members on Friday. So the other projects that are scheduled, there's not much additional here that we haven't discussed in the past. I don't actually think there's anything additional here we haven't discussed. So we've got Cyan Aurora to Burn, resurfacing plan for 2021. The McCoy MM signal, we've got some temporary signals there as that intersection is being worked on. Those aren't the permanent signals, but those will be put in place eventually. And then all of the other additional changes going along with Capital City Trail relocation and that intersection being a little bit built out a little bit more robustly. And then we kind of already discussed the Cyan Road work that's being split into two different projects. Certainly as more things get added, we'll discuss those, but as of right now, those are the significant ones I'm aware of for the next couple of years. Is that it at the moment, Andrew?
Yep, and just to mention real quickly, Seminole and Lacey, so we did have a resolution go to council that was kind of a combination of both the design contract and the intersection control there. We basically just approved the design contract without kind of specifically recommending intersection control, so that'll go back to a public meeting here probably in the next month and a half out in West Lacey, just to make sure we're hearing one last time from everybody around there and on what the preferred intersection control is. So look for that certainly in the next couple weeks.
All right, thanks. I believe that gets us to, item 5D. Am I right on that? Nope, not yet. 5D is Andrew, so let me stop sharing here for a moment. So this is 5D is the bike pedestrian crossing prioritization for RFP treatment. So Andy, you've got an update for us on this. Andrew, you're muted.
Sorry, can you guys see my screen okay? Oops, that's too much. All right. So this is the latest data that we have on, I know Steve, I think you do want to talk on this. So, but this is just, I guess, a review item, but I do kind of want to get in front of everybody just to kind of follow up. We talked a little bit about this before. So basically, we have an old RFB from a key. We wanted to find a new home for it, make use of it. Seminole and Cap City Trail had been the kind of number one new location for a while, and we just want to make sure we were being kind of systematic. We have a policy that kind of prescribes what treatments kind of in different contexts, and so we kind of went through a number of other locations around the city, got pedestrian data. Each one of these is basically the bike ped crossing data from 8 to 9 on a weekday. And so we got that. We got the vehicle speed and volume data at that same location. And then we kind of put it all together just so we can kind of see what exposure looks like and kind of the comparison, just, making sure we're not just jumping to the first one. And so I'll note that Seminole and Cap City, with the trail crossing there, the Cannonball being closed at the roundabout, we know that there is some folks redirecting, detouring onto the Cap City Trail. And so I would expect that 31 that we counted back in June is slightly higher than it would normally be. But I did ask our intern to kind of keep track of who was continuing on the trail. And they said that by and large, these riders were continuing on the trail. So they're not just cutting back up to Cannonball. So I would say that's, maybe high, but probably in line with what we typically see, 20 to 30 bikes and peds. So, so basically, we typically want 20 to warrant a crosswalk. I think in some of these cases, we likely see crossings higher in the 4 to 5 o'clock, depending upon the land uses around there and that sort of thing. And so, some that are lower would make me think that, potentially, it would still get 20 during a different hour. But this is just, I guess, a proxy for general pedestrian bike traffic and general vehicle traffic and speed. So with all that, the Cap City Trail and Seminole does stand out as the number one. And so that will likely be where we would want to put this RFB. I'll note, Lacey and Sunflower surprised me. That's definitely a higher speed, a good amount of vehicle and ped and bike traffic. And then certainly I think another runner-up would be the Seminole and Badger State Trail. We know that we have high speed down there. The speed limit's 50, the 85th percentile is 54. So yeah, just walking through this. So we have, the volume here, and then we have speed information here. So 54 is certainly the highest speeds we saw out there, and that makes sense. It's more of a rural setting. Folks are going faster, and so I would like to do something there. That crossing is a little bit more complicated with the Wistout right of way, and so I think that's potentially another CIP project to look forward to in the upcoming year. So any comments on this before we kind of start moving ahead with starting to do some rough design?
I think, again, is this the one, Steve, you had comments on? You got your hand up.
Yes.
I do. Thank you. So first of all, remind folks of the history is that these signals were originally installed at PD and McKee and the Badger. And when they were installed there was an intention to build the bridge, and there was an intention at that time to move them to the Cannonball and Seminole and the Cap City and Seminole. Because PD is was a 4-lane road with a median, we can actually cover 2 complete intersections by buying just 2 more RRFBs. We have enough buttons. We have 6 of the 8 RRFBs that we need to do 2 intersections. So the other thing that you may not be aware of is that these are wireless and solar powered. so they do not require any conduit or power from the mains. And so they can be installed anywhere. And they should be able to charge up enough daily to even in a shade tree situation. We would recommend that they go on to Seminole at the Badger, Seminole at the Cannonball and the Cap City because of the morning commute. That morning commute time where traffic is very, very steady through the Seminole Highway and up toward the Beltline is also the busy time for bicycle commuting. So I'm going to strongly support on behalf of Bike Fitchburg those two locations.
And I'm gonna chime in as the chair of this group. I think this suggestion makes a lot of sense, and I guess I look for a consensus from the bike committee colleagues to support this because it is, first of all, people are traveling faster than the posted speed limit on that road. So what do the rest of you think about Steve's comments?
I completely agree.
I as well.
Me too.
Okay, so you've got a consensus from our committee, Andrew and Phil. Let's try and figure out a way to do that. And I think what Steve shared, that the ones from PD are sitting somewhere. We can work on those. So
I agree as well. That's in my district, and I crossed it about 20 minutes ago.
well, having had a wreck and almost been hit on both those, I would agree. So anyway, do you need anything else from us, Andrew, as you take this forward? You've got a consensus.
Nope.
You've got Bike Fitchburg behind it. So would you
Yes.
please find a way to get this done?
We'll definitely start planning. Yeah, I'll look for money. And then basically that was the only kind of hang up of getting some new bases in. And then if we do have to buy any more, where that would come from. But yep, we can definitely look at some options and report back.
The original cost was $20,000 for PD, and the county paid for half of it at that time. And I would congratulate Andrew for seeking objective data. So I think that's a good thing, and we should be doing it. I also just wanted to share the history and historical intention.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, let's keep moving. I'm trying to hold us to our agenda time. So next on the agenda, Phil and Andrew, is 5E. Is that correct?
That's
the
correct.
registration process, Phil. Okay, so take it away, Phil.
Is this another one that, Steve, that you registered to speak on? Yes, it is.
Yes.
So go ahead, Steve.
Well, I just support the selection of bike index for the city recommendation. Bike Fitchburg is all in helping to publicize the new system and particularly do outreach to maybe underserved groups and neighborhoods to try to get bikes registered so that when they go missing off of back patios of apartments and things like that, they can be returned to their owners. And I stand ready to answer questions about the bike index. I've been using it for more than 10 years.
So I listened to a podcast last Friday about Bike Index, and it was really fascinating, and they had a lot of success stories, which I thoroughly enjoyed listening to. It was fun to learn a little bit about it. It was a podcast about gravel biking, but they were interviewing somebody who's in the Olympics in track racing, but her full-time job is with Bike Index, and wow, really, really, really positive.
Yeah, I sent Bike Index a note. I read at Steve's suggestion. I registered our bikes, and was out of the office till like August 5th or something. So she's still over there in Tokyo. But I think this is a great deal for us. And if you recall, just a sidebar of this is one of the things that we had an inconsistency about from our dashboard. And so this is a good thing. And I will volunteer to also work with the city and with Bike Fitchburg to try and get this message out. Once Phil has us, I'm going to turn it over to you, Phil, but kind of a instruction memorandum. And we've got 2 questions I want to bring up before we finish it. So go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, you should have received this. All had a chance to read through this memo here. So essentially, this is a memo that I'd be putting on the city's bicycle website, and then we'd also have this information available through city parks, Parks and Rec, as well as Bike Fitchburg. So it's generally an overview of why we got rid of the mandatory bike registration. This actually needs to be updated to June 8th. May 11 was when it initially was approved to be referred to committee, but June 8th is when council passed it through. But then just looking at what we recommend people do going forward, and the one the one potential wrinkle on that kind of gets thrown in here is I know that Mark and Steve, as we were emailing back and forth about this, we had included Lieutenant Hartwick in our emails. I didn't realize until he called me Friday that somewhere along the line his personal email address got included there instead of his work email address, and somehow the emails were getting into his spam filter. So he didn't see this for a little bit. So I finally got feedback from Ned on Friday.
Okay.
And so it was a little bit late to make any updates in here. The thing that he was a bit concerned about was if we don't have an official partner, if we have not officially partnered with, say, Bike Index as a city, promoting one versus the other. And he suggested kind of a friendly amendment, I guess, of basically saying we recommend that all Fitchburg bike owners register their bikes with a national database. The way the city of Madison did this on their website is they said, we recommend that you register with a national database. There are these 2, Project 529 and Bike Index. We're going to partner with one of those. Once we do, we'll officially promote that one. Now, what we could do as Fitchburg is we could say there are 2 different national bike registration databases. We currently have, at this point, like I've signed the city up for a free account with each of these, with both Bike Index and 529. We could certainly say, we encourage you to sign up with a national database. We have an account with Bike Index. If we, if there is any, if there's any reason to push people towards one or another right now, I'm not sure if there is. I have my bikes registered with both of them because it was free. At some points, I'm maybe more likely to get a sticker myself with one or the other. But at least as long as Fitchburg doesn't have a paid account with either one, I think that was kind of part of Lieutenant Hartwick's concern, is whether we want to promote one over another, or if we just want to alert people that there are registration databases. If you get your bike in either one, that's good. So that was a recommended change from Ned.
Well, I will take responsibility for Ned getting. I had Ned's Gmail from the old Boys and Girls Club stuff, so that's my fault. I'll take that responsibility. The second part is, I think I'm okay with the proposed amendment you've made to make both of them there, and not promote one or the other. The other question, the other thing I will add to this is that I talked to my alder, Julia, who can get the thing translated into Spanish. So we can get the message around to some of our schools as it begins to come together. But I told her I'd wait until we had a final product. The other thing is that I think we can also have this put in the Fitchburg Star. We mentioned this thing that Tony's going to talk probably a little more about when he talks about this August 11th picnic. Maybe we have the thing to hand out there if folks are interested. So I think we can begin to get this out, and Steve said he was going to help with this as well. So I think once you get a final document, Phil, once this committee okays it with those changes you've provided, that we begin to move towards a communication plan. How do the rest of you feel?
Yeah.
Don't everybody jump on it at once. So you need a motion here, Phil?
I don't know that I necessarily need a motion. This isn't an official action. I think certainly it would be good to know if this has the support of the whole committee. The one other thing that we'd want to talk about eventually, I don't think this necessarily needs to come up. I don't think this needs extensive discussion right now, but the one other thing Lieutenant Hartwick mentioned is just that he was looking at the different tiers of membership and some of the things that come along with the $500 a year, $1,000 a year. He at least didn't feel from his vantage point and his previous involvement with bike recovery, he didn't think that those paid options were necessarily of benefit to a city the size of Fitchburg. Things like having our own branded city registration website, as opposed to people just being able to use a generic one, or being able to do bulk uploads where he said, we get 10 to 20 registrations a year, and doing anything in batch is maybe not necessarily something that's vital for Fitchburg. So that was also kind of his one additional comment, was he supported us sticking with just a free account kind of in perpetuity unless we get to a point where we really feel like that's lacking. But I think that is another decision I just wanted to make sure to share that because it was part of the discussion that I had with him. But I think that's something that we'd probably deal with down the road a little bit, and just something for us to consider.
But I think you're right. Let's get into this and see where it goes. The other part is he still didn't answer yet. What do we do with those of us who'd registered with the city years ago?
Yes, and we did discuss that. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
Yep, we discussed that as well. He said that it's not an issue for the police department to maintain that spreadsheet. Like it is a spreadsheet that lives on. People who have registered, we could, if somebody reports a bike missing, it can just as easily be looked up in that spreadsheet. We certainly would encourage people to register online. And if someone is cross-registered in both locations, then it just means that we can look them up in both. He said that he doesn't have any expectation that they're going to erase that file at any point. So those registrations will persist.
Well, let's keep moving down the list. If there's no further discussion, then I think you can make the changes that you talked about, and you have consensus from this committee. And Steve had already spoken that Bike Fitchburg's support of this as well. And then we can work offline about a communication plan.
Angie, were you going to have a comment?
Oh, sorry, Angie.
No.
Okay, well, Phil, let's move on to the. Do you want me to give the bike counter update, or do you want to give that?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Well, I think as we know, this committee has discussed on several occasions the need to, one of the things that when we got our dashboard back, one of the biggest criticisms leveled against us was that we don't have a way to, there weren't accurate bike counting going on in the city. And we've looked at a number of ways to do this, starting with standing out and counting things, to trying to figure out what the county is doing, to looking what others around us are doing. And that one of the things I came back with, and we've talked about, is to have some sort of bike counter process. But we've got to have some data as we begin to put in our application to go for gold. And so fortunately, what we've had is Phil has looked at a number of things, including Echo Counter. We participated in some conference calls with Echo Counter. And there is, believe it or not, there's some money available through CETA for sports events and things that I have talked to the city about freeing up some of that money to buy an Echo Counter to get us started. And it's about, I want to say, I don't have the pile in front of me, but it's between $3,000 and $4,000 to get one out there.
I think the quote we had was $4,300.
Okay, thank you. To at least get one out there and then move this forward as we go on. So I have mentioned this to the mayor. I heard this from Mike Zimmerman. This was brought up at the CETA meeting last week. So it's a good thing. And I think that we will be able to take this forward to get this started. And I'm going to look to you, Phil, to talk to Zimmerman to see what we need to do to begin to get this done, because I think Steve Arnold did bring up some time ago, and I know you want to speak on this, Steve. So I'm going to be quiet right now. But I think if we do this while they're finishing up that capital project, on the Cannonball, this may be beneficial. So Steve, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I understand the portable counters are what you have in mind, and I was wondering about getting getting the detectors buried when they pave the Cannonball. And the portable counter, you don't have to make a decision. With a permanent counter, you do need to decide where it's going to be put. And the heaviest commuter traffic is between the Southwest Path and the Military Ridge Path out to Epic. And so if we get only one counter that we want to embed, I would embed it in the pavement when they put it in. It could be that they're really not equipped to put this in at paving time, that they have to diamond saw the pavement and then patch it. That, of course, affects the life of the path. So I think it's a question we need to ask EcoCounter, whether their detectors can be put in during asphalt paving. And we should seriously consider putting in a permanent detector and a handhole so that for future wiring, so that we can take advantage of that paving project.
Yeah, I think we are kind of in a bit of a tension between getting something as quickly as possible and getting something that's maybe a little bit more robust. And given the current funding options, the temporary tubes were a more viable option. When you're talking about embedding in the Cannonball, do you mean the repaving post MMSD reconstruction?
MMSD is getting ready to pave what we call the Military Ridge Path and the Cannonball. And I guess to be more clear, I meant the Military Ridge Path. That would be the western arm of the roundabout.
Yeah, I think we would need a large amount of funding to come in really quickly to purchase one of those, and I don't know that is likely to happen.
And I don't think it's going to happen either, guys. It's got to go back through CETA. I mean, this just got identified 2 weeks ago.
So the thing that I'm looking at is as hopefully the quickest way to get funding for tubes so we can start getting data as quickly as possible is I've talked with Mike. I've talked with Mike about finding a way to free up that $4,300 through basically just an amendment that if it's under $5,000, it can get the mayor's approval and doesn't need to go through council. So if we can find $5,000 that's available in this year's budget, then we can get that money transferred over so that we can purchase some temporary counters and start getting that data ASAP.
Well, we can follow up offline. I think in the long run, we need an overall plan where we, just like with as we start talking about bike share, where do we want this stuff? Right. And if Steve's saying start there as the higher place, that's maybe where we want to start. And there's nobody down there yet. And of course, as we apply for the application, tell them it was under construction. So, but I think, guys, this is a good thing. And this is one of the last pieces I see as we begin to get ourselves ready to talk about gold, is being able to count. And even if we tell them we're going to be in a phase project. So, so Phil, thank you for that. And we can follow up offline with what else we need to do to get this freed up. Because I'm also on CETA and I know it's got to come back through there. And I talked to him about it 2 weeks ago at that meeting. So moving forward, the next item, I'm going to turn this over to Phil. We are looking for a new committee member.
Yeah, that's about the long and short of it is, unfortunately, our newest member, Ellie, I mean, fortunately for her, it sounds like she got a really cool opportunity out in, I believe, Boulder. But Ellie is going to be leaving us shortly. Wasn't able to make this morning's meeting. And I think she'll be gone before I think she's leaving in September. So we'll be gone before our October meeting. So we have an opening on the bike committee that we're going to need to fill. We have, you can always submit applications for any board or committee on the city's website, but now it's especially relevant for this one. I think it's just kind of a call to action, get everybody out there. And if you know anybody who you think could be a valuable voice in this committee, certainly I think we have a lot of the more southern reaches of Fitchburg represented well. It would be awesome to have a member on the committee who lives also in the northern half of Fitchburg's kind of urban suburban area. Just to get a little bit. Joe, you
Joe, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, my neighbor, like 3 houses down from me, applied months ago.
Oh, really?
So I would just encourage you all to encourage the mayor to appoint him. His name is Ryan Hulseman. He's I think he's an engineer by trade, but he also like runs a business out of his house, like fixing bikes, repairing bikes, selling bikes. Just an overall good guy, and he's very tuned in with, I think, what our committee would be interested in.
So Phil, can you find his application?
I don't know that I'd get access to his application, but I can certainly check in with the mayor's office. I wasn't aware that anybody had applied, so I will look into that and make sure that they received it. And if somehow that didn't work out and they didn't receive it, Joe, I'll let you know so you can ask them to apply again. But hopefully they've got that in hand.
We get notifications anytime anybody applies, so I've like got it in my email.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Joe, would you send that to me too? Because I'm having coffee with the mayor next week, so or in 2 weeks.
Perfect.
I'll bring that up as well. So that's great. I think it'd be great. And Joe, just to clarify, you live on the other. Are you on the other side of Verona Road? You're not, are you? Your district goes over there, but he lives by you. You're on this side of Verona.
We live right near the Boys and Girls Club.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. But that's still, I think, Phil, goes to what you said about getting some more representation towards that way through Fitchburg. And that'll be good in the long run. So we want active members on the committee. So thank you for that. We're down, we got a couple more items to cover. I'm going to move on to the next one. And we have Tony Hartman, who has joined us, who is Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are you still the acting president of Bike Fitchburg? We also have Steve registered to speak on Bike Fitchburg. We're going to make this, and Phil suggested we make this a regular topic, and I think it's a great idea because we're actually working on a lot of the same things. And it's important that we communicate with each other. This is one of my goals of becoming chair. In the past, it was kind of like this, and I do think we're doing a lot of this together now. So between Tony and Steve, I'm going to give you guys the floor and let you give an update on what's going on with Bike Fitchburg. So between the two of you, decide who's going to talk first.
And just as a quick note, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so you've got time to, don't feel like you have to rush it.
We'll arm wrestle for it. Well, Steve's been doing a great job. I would just say that you're right about our missions being very much aligned. And the big difference here is that we're more into advocacy and lobbying, and you guys are more into getting it done. And you're an official city committee, which is important. There are a few of you that do double duty, like Angie, who are a part of both of our groups. But, I would say by and large, you brought up the echo counters. We're all in on going for gold. So counting bikes, really important. I think the, $4,300 is a doable number, and we can help raise money. So we should help with that too. If we can help get a few $100s, at least we're showing an effort. And, I think it's easier for the city to match sometimes. Education, these rodeos you mentioned, absolutely. So this day after tomorrow, this Thursday, I and several of you and a few folks are meeting with Lisa Heitman, Officer Heitman, who is, I think for the first time, in charge of this picnic. It's part of the National Night Out, which is already going to be next week. And we are going to try to do a junior rodeo. So just at least, as Steve says, the first 3 stations. He knows a lot more about rodeos than I do, but I think we can quickly get our feet wet because we're going to have to do more of a complete rodeo, which Joe Maldonado has, encouraged us to do it over on the far west side. So we are going to do that at the Fountains Apartments on 9/11. So that's the day before the Ironman. And it's important that we get as many volunteers as we can. So anybody from your group would be good. But that's all about education, and especially for young people. But I also am going to say I see that as an opportunity to educate adults and especially drivers about biking. So we need to work together, both of our groups, on that. And I guess that's about all I had immediately, except to promote our Pick Me Up at the Border ride, which is a fundraiser, which is next month on the 24th. It's Friday night, starts at 7 p.m. when it's still light out at race day events and the Hop House on Seminole Highway. But more about that if you go to our website. So again, the Pick Me Up at the Border ride is the end of next month. And I'm not sure, Phil, if you guys have another meeting before then, but certainly would like to get as many people as possible to use the Badger going down to the Illinois border. And of course, you can go a short distance if you want to go to Belleville and back, you can do that. And it's all about fun and a family kind of event, so very friendly. Steve, I'll let you speak briefly about rodeos because, we're going to have two good ones. And hey, look there, we got the youngest biker has just joined.
I was just going to ask, are you promising us better weather this year for the Pick Me Up at the Border?
Yes, I promise.
We're going
As
from
a former politician, it's easy to make those promises.
We're going from a low base. I didn't know that Tony was going to be on the call. That's why I registered. I will clarify that Tony is our president now, has been duly elected. We have a vacancy for vice president. We have a couple of new board members, but we could use at least one more. So if you know anybody, let us know. We need to be careful about having overlapping directorships. Any number of Bike Fitchburg people can appear at a public meeting of the bicycle committee, but if more than 3 members of the bicycle committee show up at one of our events, it has to be noticed by the clerk for informational purposes and specified that no business will be transacted. So it's probably a good idea that we not have too many bicycle committee members come to our board. Right now it's Angie and Mark are often there, and we appreciate the cross-fertilization. As far as rodeos go, rodeo polls a lot better with kids than bicycle skills workshop. So that's why, that's what it is. And that's why we call it a rodeo. And it has typically a registration and bike check and helmet fitting stations, and then 8 stations on the bike. They start out with power position, how to position your pedals to start up. Then stopping at the end of a driveway, stopping at a stop sign. Other stations are things like the rock dodge, the slow race. Who can get there last teaches stability. You want kids to be able to ride in a straight line and hold their lines and look over their shoulders if they're turning or moving left. So you teach all of these skills to the kids, and they can be of any age, from balance bikes and tricycles up to middle school ages. But we like to have the parents walk along with the kids because they're the ones that are going to continue to remind them of these skills later. We get one shot. You finish up with there's a course, a figure 8 course where kids can kind of practice, and then a community ride, typically at the end of a period. And there's often an ice cream or popsicle station or something like that that the kids can look forward to at the end. It's an open house format. People can come throughout the period. So that's the way a bicycle rodeo works. We do have a great resource in Sonia, blanking on her 2 last names, got married in the last couple of years, works for Tool Design, a national bicycle and pedestrian design firm, lives in Joe's and Ryan's neighborhood, in the Belmar Hills neighborhood. And she has got lots of experience and is happy to help us with the part that we're least experienced with, which is the project management and organization of it. Anna Bijak has always done that for the city. And of course, she now works for Janesville. So we we lost that experience. Any questions for me? Oh,
Actually,
one more
Steve,
thing.
I've got a comment. You guys were talking about Officer Hartwig earlier, and he's offered to help. And I think, and I know Phil's willing to help and other city staff. And I guess the best help we could get right now would be maybe outreach to Madison. As you know, and some on this call, there was a bike rodeo held in May over in the Allied neighborhood park. And several of us helped out, but I think Pepe was the organizer who is with the Madison Parks Department, but they have equipment, including miniature signs and things like that might be helpful. And boy, if we could get somebody who helped organize that one to work with Mike Grady. So Michael Grady on our board has graciously offered to take on the task of being the lead or the point person for the September rodeo. That would be helpful. So Phil, I may reach out to you and Ned, after this call, just with a quick email and see how you can help us by reaching out to your counterparts.
So Tony, do you know Tony or Steve, who set up, because I volunteered over there with Pepe, who set up that rodeo? I know Joe was there that Saturday. Who set that up?
Pepe Barros works for Madison Traffic Engineering.
Okay.
As a education outreach coordinator. I believe that the overall event was coordinated by Madison Parks with traffic engineering and Pepe specifically providing the bicycle rodeo components. They also had a mini rodeo with just a couple of stations. And I just wanted to add one more thing, which is that we should consider having a bike registration station with a laptop and wireless connection as one of our rodeo stations for the full rodeo. I don't know if we can pull that off for the National Night Out event coming up next week.
Why don't you let me talk to Phil about that offline and see if we can get a computer? Because since I can't ride, Tony has already hooked me into work on this, so I can be up there and I can help coordinate something like that. I don't know, Phil, let's talk offline to where to get a computer.
Sure.
I'm retired. I don't even have a laptop anymore.
The key is I can bring a computer. The key is having a hotspot so we can be online, or if we can do it close enough to some wireless.
I think that's a great idea. So Tony, why don't we talk about this with Lisa on Thursday? It'll be when they're looking at what they're going to do. And Phil, if we can have that letter ready to go, I think it'd be good to have that too. We want to have it in Spanish, but at least have a final version we can push forward. So I think that's some great comments. Tony or Steve, anything else from Bike Fitchburg? Because I got one more before Phil gives his update.
I did just comment.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I did make a comment in the chat that I thought I am opposed to Ned Hartwig's suggestion. I don't think that it benefits the city from a liability standpoint or anything to mention both. I would like to see us, like Madison, concentrate on simply Bike Fitchburg, Bike Index, so that we are not diluting our efforts. So I would just like to raise my hand in opposition to that. That's all for me.
Well, I think we need to double check Madison, because I thought at one time when I saw the Madison one, they were both listed, but I could be wrong. I don't have the file in front of me. So
they are.
Phil,
I was only going to add, Mark, that even though we have a couple of people that are connected to Trek on our board, we are very much behind the B-cycle effort. And I know that as an official city committee that you won't take stands necessarily, even though I think everybody is kind of behind this and on board. Having B-cycles in Fitchburg is going to be huge in terms of getting new bikers involved. Everybody probably knows that they're all electric now and people have a gas. They're riding through Fitchburg already just because they have more range. So now they're coming through on the Cap City Trail and on our trails. And we have the opportunity coming up to get something like 2 to 4 stations in Fitchburg. and I couldn't promote that with any greater enthusiasm, I guess. And so I'll just throw that out there. I'm going to have to duck off. I rearranged my schedule a little bit, so it worked out, and I was pleased to be invited. So thanks for having me this morning. But I'll see many of you already in a couple of days. So
yeah, thanks, Tony. And Tony stole my last bit of thunder on this. Is that there is a bike share proposal being put together. The mayor is aware of this. Mike Zimmerman's aware of this. It came up at CETA last week, and there's a small group of us. I'm not working with my Bike Fitchburg hat on. My Fitchburg Bike Committee. I am working with my Chamber of Commerce board hat on. We're talking about potential sponsors. Mike Zimmerman has found some, I mentioned some money earlier under sports through CETA that will come back through CETA to help fund some of this. I've already had another business approach me in confidence that they're interested in sponsoring a station. So what's going to happen with this is that the Trek folks are going to finish a proposal. Then it's going to go by Angela, myself from the chamber, and then we're going to bring it to the city, and then it will go from there. So this most likely won't happen for a good year or so. But the other good link with this is if you know what's going on with the Boys and Girls Club Skilled Training Center and putting a station somewhere that can let those kids get over there on Verona Road to their training, this will be a great thing for our city. And so, Tony, I'm on the same page with you. This won't be a bike committee project. It's going to come from a different source, but it is quietly moving forward. And there's a whole plan being put together. The Trek folks know how to do this. When they became e-bikes and when they got them in Monona, it certainly began to link this network. So I think it's all good. Are there any that I did ask Phil if I could speak to this, and he didn't have time to put it on the agenda. So questions or comments about it? Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, see you,
so
Tony.
Phil, you're up.
Yep, that's one other thing that I'll probably add to agendas going forward. Is right now we've got one item, number 7, for the report from the department, and I think I just kind of like to have a general reports and updates section. So we get Bike Fitchburg, we get the Gold Working Group, we get a council update. I don't think we've had that in our agendas actually before, and then the department report. Joe, if there's anything relevant from council, I'd love to hear that here. If not, then I can go forward with the department report.
No, nothing directly related to bikes.
Okay, great, thanks. Then just 2 other things as the department report. There's a couple that we already talked about. One, we've got a vacancy coming up. Hopefully we'll have a new member by October. It looks like October 5 is the meeting. I'll get that date put together confidently. I've met with Steve, and I met with Jeremy Crosby with Fact TV about Bike Fitchburg and Fact TV partnering to put together a PSA regarding those new 2-step turn boxes for cyclists at the Seminole Highway and McKee Road intersection. So that's something that I actually haven't heard anything in a couple weeks there, Steve, but hopefully that's still moving forward, and we'll have a PSA ready to put out soon.
It's stalled, but I'll
try
to get it going again.
Okay.
Summer is kind of crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, that will be really good to, if you haven't been to that intersection yet, likely it's kind of in the center of Fitchburg. You've all seen it, but yeah, just a really nice way to help sort of make it a lot more clear, a safe way for bikes to turn left especially when there's a lot of auto traffic. The other one is just a couple quick updates on bicycling grants. So the North Fish Hatchery Road hub that we're planning over the next couple years, phase 1, is going to include a bike playground. So I've been submitting grants for that. I submitted a letter of intent last week to apply for a grant from People for Bikes. They have a national grant available that would offer up to $10,000 for bike projects. So I submitted a letter of intent. I'll hear back from them the next few weeks about whether they actually want us to submit a full grant application. And at that point, I'd look for council approval and let you all know that we're doing that. So hopefully they like the letter of intent enough to invite a full application. The other one is the Dane County Parks Park and Ride grant application. I believe I notified you in June I had applied for that. I heard back from Dane County two or 3 weeks ago. They had a pretty heavy slate of applications this year. They want to fund more than they actually had funding available in their 2021 cycle. So what it sounds like is they're going to look for additional funding for 2022 that would then cover our project without us having to apply again. So if this moves forward, and it sounds like they're pretty hopeful. I don't see any reason that this is going to be blocked, but it's not confirmed yet. But if this does work out the way we're hoping, then this year's application will be already successful for next year, and we'll get $75,000 from Dane County to help pay for that bike playground, which would be a huge assist in getting that covered. So that's the department updates that we've got.
Okay, thank you very much. And folks, we've got 8 minutes left. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up for the good of this group? All right, hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn and thank everybody for their input today.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Potts, and did I see Angie do a second? Okay, so it's been seconded and so moved. So thank you, everybody. All those opposed, I'm doing it backwards. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. We'll see you in 2 months, and we'll see some of you out on August 11th. And we got a lot of follow-up to do. So thank you very much, folks.